Miles Morales is Spider-Man. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse stars Shameik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Oscar Isaac, and is directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2023 review. I'm so excited. I just got out of seeing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and before I jump into this, and there will be some spoilers throughout this review, I'm not gonna go so in-depth that I'm like talking for an hour on this thing, but there's definitely some things in here that it's hard to avoid talking spoilers. And being that it's Sunday and a lot of people have already seen this movie, why not, right? Also, you remember how I did my full MCU ranking? Now I'm doing a full non-MCU ranking that will include this movie and Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's 36 movies. I think it's 36 movies. And I've literally went and watched every single one of those movies leading up to this. So I've watched a lot of superhero movies over the last couple of months, all right? But man, that did not hurt my viewing experience for this movie. This is on another level. This is a lesson in, it doesn't matter how many superhero movies there are, superhero fatigue doesn't have to be a thing if the story, the characters, the movie itself is great. And this movie is definitely that. So looking forward to diving into this review. And let me restate this, even though I'm talking light spoilers, if you haven't seen this movie, I think if you watched this review, you would still be fine to go see the movie. You would enjoy yourself. I'm not going to really go too far in depth with any kind of major twists, you know? But like I said, there's a few things I definitely need to discuss. Whew! Fuck! So first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. This movie opens up with Gwen Stacy, played by Haley Steinfeld. I think a good 15, 20 minutes is really just kind of telling her a little bit of her backstory. And if you remember, she's in a different multiverse, right? And so eventually she ends up in Miles Morales' multiverse. But like I said, it takes a while before we actually get there. But I didn't mind it because I loved spending a little bit of time with Gwen and finding out a little bit more about her, where she comes from. And also, aesthetically, her world looks a little bit different than this world. We'll get into the visual majesty of this movie, but I want to cover my plot basis. So by the time we get into, Miles Morales' world, it's refreshing for a couple reasons. The different visual aesthetic, and also Miles Morales is just such a fun and interesting character. He's hilarious. I think as hilarious as some of the other Spider-Men that we've seen in the past. I would love to see this guy almost like in a live action setting with the previous three that we saw in No Way Home. And I would bet that this movie would bring along a live action Miles Morales movie, and I would love that. It might be a while though, because spoilers, the end of this movie sets up for this being a part one. There's a part two coming, and there's a lot more to explore. Now, there is this other Spider-Man character by the name of Miguel, and by the way, there are so many freaking Spider-Men and Spider-Women in this movie. Way too many to count, but I think the major kind of a villain type character is Miguel, and he's a great villain because he thinks what he's doing is for the greater good. And kind of is. But they're trying to catch this character named Spot, which is sort of the first villain that we see. And Spot has a major part throughout this movie. Spot's this weird character that has these portals, these holes in his body. And there's this amazing fight scene with Miles Morales and him where every time Miles punches the portal, his fist comes out the other end of another portal. This is a villain that we've never really seen before. And I guess you could say he's slippery. He's hard to keep up with. And it's really funny too because Miles, while he's fighting him, he's texting on his phone because he's late to this meeting with the guidance counselor and his father and his mother. But eventually Miles Morales, he factors into the story with Gwen. He reconnects with Gwen. Gwen can tell that he is smitten with her. They definitely play around with the love connection between the two of them. Are they? Aren't they? That's even a joke in the movie, which is funny. And I'd say the first half of this movie is it never stops. It's almost too insane how much is going on in the first half. And then they end up kind of this base station where all the multiverse Spider-Men are. And that's where the story really opens up. And there's this section where they find out that what's called the canon, every Spider-Man has a certain backstory, and there has to be this tragic loss in the backstory. And let me just say, this scene is so full of amazing Easter eggs. There was a moment, we're watching the movie with my son, you saw some glimpses of, scenes from like Spider-Man 1, scenes from Amazing Spider-Man, and so on. And my son literally knocks over my nachos in my lap because he just like, oh my God, look at that. It was just pretty much like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that meme that everybody sees. My son literally did that. And he goes, sorry, Dad. But I was excited too. This movie is so full of fun little Easter eggs. Donald Glover showing up, because way back in the day, it was rumored that Donald Glover would play Miles Morales. He would be the perfect Miles Morales. So I guess technically now he is, and they could do a multiverse movie with him. Yeah, he's a little older, but he's still pretty young. So, you could definitely have a great movie with him. But I think if they did a Miles Morales origin story, they probably would go with a younger actor. So this particular section is kind of the emotional jolt of the movie because Miles Morales figures this out and he has to go back to protect his family, his parents, because they could be at risk, because this has to happen to every Spider-Man. It's part of what makes them who they are. And all this results in this epic finale, I guess a race to get to Miles Morales' parents. And we think that he's in one location, but he could be in another multiverse because we find out the origin of the spider and that it wasn't supposed to be in his universe in the first place. And that's one thing I love so much about this movie is it deals with Miles Morales wasn't even supposed to be Spider-Man in the first place. It was supposed to be someone else. That spider was supposed to be in a different world. And not necessarily Peter Parker, but somebody else. So it could have been a Miles Morales in that world. So there's this really emotional scene where Miles, he feels like, you know what? Everybody's against me. I'm not even supposed to be Spider-Man. And so I'm going to pretty much take on the world. This is a young 15-year-old character who has the world on his shoulders. And you can't help but love the guy at this point in the movie. You are behind him. Okay, now let's talk about the massive pros of this movie. If you couldn't tell how I'm gushing through just the plot synopsis, it's a really great story, guys. Set aside all the visual panache, set aside how this visually is one of the most groundbreaking looking movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know that there's a previous movie before this, and if you think that one blew your socks off, wait till you see this one. It's a lot to process after you watch the movie, but damn, is it a good story, and you're just constantly there with them. And really, this movie's proof of that. If you don't have a good story, all that pizzazz, it doesn't even matter. But I'd say out of all the Spider-Man movies, this is probably one of the most complex and compelling stories of the bunch. Out of all of them. And this might be the best Spider-Man movie to date. I'm still processing it. Spider-Man 2 might be a little better, but maybe not. And all the other characters that are supporting Miles in this movie, they're all just so great. I really loved his mother and father in this one, even more than the first movie. That family connection is so profound in this movie. And I'm not gonna lie, I started getting a little bit teary-eyed, especially with the conversation between him and his mother. It's really beautiful. She's tough. They're strict with their rules with him, but it's all backed by love. They love their son so much. And there's a lot of things in the first movie that tie in with this one, including his uncle, and who was the Prowler. And then we get that scene in the end where you find out that his uncle lives in the other multiverse, and then he finds out that he himself is the Prowler, that version of himself, and they come face to face, and then that's the end of the movie. And then, boom, to be continued. It's been a while since we had a movie that said to be continued at the end. Automatically made me think of Back to the Future. But this movie is just such an adrenaline rush. It's a jolt. It's a drug. That's what this movie is. It's phenomenal. No cons. 0.0 cons whatsoever. Perfectly paced. Trapped on a freaking island, for sure. I can't wait to see it again. So let me know down in the comments your thoughts on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. On Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Drumdum out.